Sugaru Geto, the man, the myth, and the absolute failure that I personally believe deserves the title of potential man more than Megami, who the fandom has awarded that title to. In each part, I will argue why I believe Sugaru Geto is the true potential man. For the record, this is my third time recording this video. And it's not because there was anything particularly wrong with the other two videos, because my points on this are pretty much the same. But I was just kind of lazy and procrastinated. I did go from being genuinely curious about Sugaru Geto to being more and more aggravated about how the fandom depicts him and how I feel like they kind of mischaracterize him and make him more than what he is. Enjoy. So let's talk about Sugaru Geto. I'll make this a pretty quick rundown about his characters for those of you who happen to click on this video and not know who he is. You're just in here for the negative vibes and the drama. I respect that. I respect you. Sugaru Geto is a Jujutsu sorcerer who attends Jujutsu High. His curse technique allows him to capture and consume defeated cursed spirits and pull them out at will to use to defend against other cursed spirits. He's also best friends with Satoru Gojo. I also want to point out, and I need you to keep in mind, okay, that Geto doesn't come from a poor background. He doesn't come from a broken home. As far as we know, he has loving parents that don't have a problem with him being a sorcerer, and they are non-sorcerers. So I want you to keep that in mind. And there is literally no information, and I have looked it up and tried to find credible sources if there is anything saying that he had a troubled home or a troubled past, and he doesn't. I also want you to keep in mind that as a Jujutsu sorcerer, he was not forced to go to Jujutsu High. He chose to go to Jujutsu High, even though he didn't have to. I also want you to keep in mind, he says that swallowing curses is like swallowing a dirty rag that's used to clean up vomit. Now we get into the nitty-gritty. Now we get to talk about Geto's personal philosophy, which I've always found unsettling. But somehow this keeps him grounded and keeps him as a Jujutsu sorcerer who follows the rules. I need to start pacing for this. Geto's personal philosophy is, it is the duty of the strong to protect the weak. When you're in a position where your job is saving people from curses, it's just something about that being your main philosophy. The only reason you're doing this job is because you're strong and you have to protect the weak people. It's undeniable Geto is a strong character. He's a strong Jujutsu sorcerer, and yes, he is stronger than the average person that doesn't have curse energy or never practiced a curse technique. You're not being held against your will to do something that you don't want to do. Like, you're not forced to be part of Jujutsu High. You weren't recruited. You're not in a situation where, in a lot of shonen anime, a child doesn't have a choice to be in these positions. They have to be in it. They have to be child soldiers. They have to be picked in a lot because of some stupid reason as to why only children can do it, and somehow the adults are just useless besides forcing kids to do things like that. That's not your position. That's not your reality. Oh, I'm doing it because I have to. But my thing is, you didn't have to.
I understood the ugliness of the masses, and still, I chose to be a Jujutsu sorcerer who saves others.
I think it reflects Geto's superiority complex, because he definitely has one. And it isn't something that he gained later on, like in JJK Volume 0. No, he's had that from jump. And I try to do research as well on like where he got the philosophy from, and finding out that his parents are not even sorcerers. We don't know anything about his family background. Where did you get that philosophy from? Hey, editing Jessica here. I actually have an example of a better ideology that I feel is closer to Geto's but doesn't sound as pretentious. Season 3, episode 8 of Fire Force, Benimaru says, "I protect those who cannot protect themselves." To me, I see this as a more genuine way of saying it is the duty of the strong to protect the weak, because Benimaru isn't just saying this because he's stronger and better as he's part of the Fire Force. It is because he genuinely wants to protect those that do not have the means to protect themselves like he does. It's because he is literally capable of not only protecting himself, but those around him as well. He don't play about that village. They respect him. Being a firefighter is a job that he decided to do, and he's willing to do the work, even if he thinks it's a drag or a pain. And plus, sometimes he ain't even trying to fight to save the day. He just like to fight. And in that same episode, before he says the quote I just mentioned, he says, "The people higher up the ladder, I will crush them all." Another way of thinking that just for some reason never came across to Geto. He knows the higher ups are to blame, the people with power that are abusing that power. Geto's ideology sounds wrong, it sounds disingenuous and off-putting because there's a sense of duty out of obligation, as if he's forced to do it. Whereas Benimaru is doing his job out of a sense of duty to protect the people he cares about and to do what he thinks is right. He believes in justice. Benimaru's logic isn't something that he needs to keep saying to convince himself. He actually believes it. Let's point out Gojo, whose birth shifted the balance of the earth. He's born into a clan, a very, very well-known, popular, populated clan. You could say there's definitely pressure put on Gojo because of what is expected of him as the strongest. And it's no surprise the two of them are friends. I definitely see Gojo leaning on Geto as moral support. After all that happened with the Star Plasma Vessel, Gojo made it clear, I will off everybody in here. You give me the word and I'll do it. And it was Geto that told him no. We still have the duty of the strong to protect the weak, even though they're horrible people. Of course he's going to descend into madness. That's not like the best way to think about things. And this is why I honestly wasn't surprised that Geto decided to leave. Gojo is, I feel like this is obvious, the main reason why Geto stayed so long. In one of my TikTok videos, I explained why I think Toji is not the reason Geto and Gojo broke up, and that Setsusugo fans should not make Toji be the blame because Geto was going to break up with Gojo anyways. People believe that Toji is the reason why the two of them broke up, and if Toji wasn't involved, then the two of them would still be friends forever. And I'm just sad to say, not really, because they were going to break up anyway, because undeniably, Gojo was going to get stronger. Toshi don't know about them kids. He knows loosely about Gojo because Gojo had the life he thinks he should have had, and he's the child born and shifted the balance of the earth. Like, you're going to know of Gojo, the one boy who turned around and straight up saw the invisible man. So yeah, he has his own reservations about Gojo. He don't know Geto. That's why he beat the shit out of him. Like, he literally was gonna let Geto go after he killed Riko because, girl, I don't know you. And mind you, he would have died had Toji that said, listen, I'm on the schedule, okay? I'm not trying to deal with all these curses you ate. He don't know, nor does he care about Gojo and Geto's relationship to be like, and I'm gonna break them up. If the whole situation with Riko and Toji went right, they were able to kill Toji, and Riko is alive, and whatever about the Star Plasma Vessel, whatever, if everything went right, as the years gone by, something would have triggered Gojo's awakening. He would have undeniably gotten stronger anyways, and Geto would have felt some type of way. Because another thing that I feel like a lot of people don't point out about Geto's character, besides his superiority complex, besides his prejudice, people don't talk enough about his ego. It plays a major part in the rest of his story arc. Are we surprised? Gojo has a pretty good ego too. If the two of them claim that they are the strongest, of course both of them got big egos. And sure, he doesn't have an ego in a chauvinistic way, at least not at first. He internalized his feelings of superiority and something that's going into prejudice. And you can't convince me that after Gojo's reawakening and boost of strength and power, Geto didn't feel some type of way. I'm pretty sure he says, at least in the anime, we're not the strongest together anymore.
Satoru had become the strongest. He handled all of his missions alone, and Shoko was never sent out on any dangerous missions, which naturally meant I was sent out on missions alone more often.
That added to his depression, that added to his outlook on life. So he went somewhere else where he was the strongest, where people could worship him and praise him. We're gonna get to that again, put a pin in it. That one thing that kept Geto in Jujutsu high and made him put up with being a Jujutsu sorcerer, doing things he didn't want to do, is no longer there. And I think for some reason, he cannot also grow in strength and ability. Allegedly, this is up to the power scalers and for the people that know more about the manga technique, because I'm not gonna lie, sometimes the explanation it be going through one ear, out the other. It's just a little bit too much about the curse techniques. It's like I'm watching Hunter x Hunter all over again with the Nen. I can't. But allegedly, he can't do reverse curse technique, allegedly. Or like, I don't know why he didn't think, let me try to level up too, but I'm guessing it's because he couldn't. I don't know. But for some reason, he decided, we're not the strongest anymore. I need to go my own separate way. And the last thing I'll say about Setsusugo is that their relationship was important, not only to the plot, but to Gojo's character development. After his best friend leaves him and they have that very public, dramatic breakup in front of a KFC, he starts to think about the higher-ups, starts to think about how children, teenage sorcerers are used by the higher-ups and how that's wrong. This is what leads to his later desire to break generational curses. Make sure what happened to him, Geto, and I mean, I guess we could include Shoko, even though y'all know she really ain't in it, but let's include her in the friendship, even though they don't be really including her in the friendship. The three of them, he made sure to not make that happen to his students. That's why people say he won in the end, despite, I already told y'all it was a spoiler alert. I already told you there was a spoiler alert. Despite the fact that he died, he did still win because the students are alive and well, and he broke the generational curse of them not breaking up in the way that him and his friend and Shoko did. I have seen way too many alarming comments from people who are fans of Geto and for some reason can understand that the trauma he went through is reason enough for him to commit mass genocide and forced evolution. Well, you know, humans ruin everything, so I totally understand why he would feel that way if I were him. Something up here. A screw is loose. So let's just list out all the traumatic events that Geto has experienced that honestly didn't take much to convince him to, yeah, I think I should commit mass and I think I should be the one to do it. Let's just go through it. Remember when I told you to remember this? No broken home, loving parents, no abuse, no record of being poor or having any financial struggle. Yeah, it was pretty traumatic that the girl that you just said you were going to protect and that you decided you did not want to offer up to Tengen, I believe, she got shot in front of you and died. Literally when you guys were about to shake hands. Yeah, that's traumatic. And then after that, you couldn't even defend her honor. You thought your best friend died and he beat the shit out of you. And the worst part is, he ain't even a sorcerer. He's, in his words, a monkey that outsmarted you and would have killed you if he didn't have to deal with all the curses that you break. Then after that, you see the Star religious group clapping at the fact that a child that they paid someone to kill is dead. That's pretty traumatic. Then after that, your best friend surpasses you in strength. Ego is bruised. Don't know if I would say trauma, but okay, let's add it to the list. Okay, after that, you have your underclassmen that honestly, there was not enough depiction of y'all's relationship, but you know, that probably wasn't even the point. We'll still give it to you anyways, okay? Haibara, he said some heartfelt words to you, you know? Your last words with him were pretty splendid. And then the next time you hear about him, he's dead. So, yeah, that could be traumatic. And then, lastly, which I think is probably higher up on the most traumatic things, you go on a mission, you find out that this, I don't know, small town or village of people have been torturing two children, putting them in a cage, and you kill everybody in it. That's pretty much all his trauma. There's only two things, in my opinion, that's worth you thinking like, okay, I'm about to go, like, I'm in my villain era. It's not like there isn't enough reasons for him to become a villain, but to jump so quickly to mass and for his evolution, because your upperclassman just sat down and talked to you, had one conversation with you, and she's like, yeah, technically it is possible, it'll take some time, but it's possible. To me, that's not enough. For you to be like, yes, we are the superior beings. If we kill off all the people that are causing the curses, then it would be a better place for me to live. I don't like doing my job. I don't like swallowing these curses. And I hate the fact that these innocent human beings are creating these curses and we're the ones that are sacrificing ourselves to do this. Okay. Here's the thing about that, right? You are not forced to do this job. You came to this school on your own will. You decided to do these missions. You decided to swallow these curses. Ain't nobody told you to do that. And you weren't in a position where you were gonna get executed like the other two characters, the other two children, so where you had to be there. You chose to be there. and you chose to swallow those curses. You could have just walked out and decided not to do it. You could have left a note, and just gone MIA if you really wanted to. Get a house and a cabin and raise those 2 kids and just have a small, quaint family. You could have done that. But the fact that you're like, oh, I hate to do this job, and I'm gonna blame people that are not aware of what's going on and the fact that they are creating curses, and I'm going to annihilate them because they're making life harder for me to do a job that I am not forced to do. It's kind of hard for me to feel empathy for you. Hi, Editing Jessica here. Again, I actually found another flaw in Geto's philosophy because, of course I did. I rewatched the hidden inventory arc to make sure that I had all my points together and I didn't miss anything. Another flaw in his philosophy is believing that all jujutsu sorcerers are inherently good, that they want to be heroes. But that couldn't be farther from the truth. A lot of jujutsu sorcerers suck. A lot of them are horrible people. They don't care actually about saving people. They don't care about doing good things. I'm gonna insert this clip of Megumi talking to Maki.
Answer me something.
Huh?
As a sorcerer, what kind of people do you want to save?
Huh? What difference should it make to me whether my actions save anyone at all?
I knew I shouldn't have asked you.
Say what?
Yeah, a lot of them do not care about saving people or doing what is right. They do it out of greed or power/status, or they do it for a check. Y'all need to admit, it's kind of outlandish for you to just hear, oh yeah, maybe you could do that, and be like, okay, that I'm gonna be the savior, and I'm gonna be the one to do that, and be prejudiced towards people who are not curse users. But it really gives a firefighter who chose to train and become a firefighter get mad at people for starting fires when it was not their intention to start a fire. If somebody left the oven on or iron on accident, well, you dumb idiot, now I gotta do my job. I don't like putting out fires. I don't like the smell. I hate how heavy the suit is. Gosh, you're making life so hard for me. I should kill you. You see how that's insane? I would understand if you were forced to do your job, but you're literally not forced to do your job. So, like, I'm even more insulted that you would ever compare Geto to Eren Yeager and Magneto. Because yes, I have seen that. Major differences. Remember again when I said that he had a loving home and loving parents and did not experience any hardship? Yeah, on top of that, you're in a world where common folk, regular people that are not curse users or maybe even curse seers do not know jujutsu sorcerers exist. Even people that may see curses don't know that curse users exist and that there are jujutsu sorcerers out there killing them. They don't know that.
Not like it matters if normies see it or not, right? They can't see cursed spirits or cursed techniques anyway.
But it's not good if they do see them. The strongest deterrent against the outbreak of a cursed spirit is the mental calm of the populace. That's exactly why we have to conceal all of these threats as much as possible, to make sure they never ever get to see them.
So it's misplaced anger for you to be upset at people that are causing things based off negative emotions, which are human emotions, that they're not even aware that they're creating. If you don't want to do your job, then don't do your job. Go somewhere. And then to compare him to Eren Yeager, who's literally experienced racism, being an Eldian, not even getting the proper legal or moral way of defending yourself as an island, your ancestors had your memories wiped, you're being targeted by another country and you don't know why, and the worst part is, they thought they were the only people on the earth. They didn't even know there was an earth. They just thought they were the only people there because they were busy getting eaten by titans every day. Part is to even think you could compare him to Magneto, who in many versions of comic books and even in movie adaptations is a Holocaust survivor. Are you ill, love? Are you ill? You're comparing Geto to a Holocaust survivor and a mutant? Mutants and X-Men are literally marginalized groups. They're literally minorities. He had more of a reason to feel, well, you're not gonna say that we're inferior because literally normal people knew that mutants existed and called them inferior and called it a disease and try to assimilate them to society, force people to get rid of their mutant abilities, their identity, so they could assimilate to society because they weren't normal. He had more of a reason to feel like, no, and matter of fact, we're superior to you because we have these abilities and you don't. And you're making us feel like we're the odd ones as if we're not cool. I can bend freaking metal, bitch. He has more of a reason to feel prejudice towards these people. I'm not saying that prejudice is right, but They have more of a reason to get to that point, I should say, than Geto, Sugaru Geto ever will. Ever. Got me sweating and shit, like damn. Geto has not experienced any prejudice or any discrimination. Yeah, it's giving prejudice and discrimination, but on his end and not anybody else's. And y'all know that considering he calls people monkeys now. And then a lot of you fans like to mention that when I said I don't like him because you like to say, well, he won't like you too. Yeah, girl, I know that. He is exactly what you don't want to say he is. And going back to his trauma, you have a right to be upset about the Star Religious group. What they did was horrible, and they were also aware of Tengen, otherwise they wouldn't have put the hit on a star plasma vessel. You could be mad at those people. You could be mad at the people who don't understand what's going on with those two girls and decided to villainize them and cage them in like animals and mistreat them. You have every right to be upset about that. I'm sweating. I can feel it. My makeup running. It's okay. He has a right to be upset about that. I would even be more understanding. He was the type of villain that only targeted people that mistreated sorcerers that they didn't know were sorcerers and gave them a bad life. But that's not what you decided to do. You said, oh, regular humans are bad. We must annihilate them. Yes, there are bad people in the world, but you can't generalize it and say, oh, these people are bad and that's a reason for you to play God and decide who gets to live or die. It doesn't work that way. And it's just mind-boggling to me that y'all would even agree with his philosophy. You murdered the people in the village that mistreated the girls. And then you went back home and you murdered your parents? For what? Oh, I had to do it to make sure there was no turning back. You could have just left. Was that not an option? Leaving? Never speaking to them again? Because you liked the power of feeling that you could kill people that you felt superior to? You like feeling like the strong that gets to go against the weak, that want to make things harder for the strong, so you went and killed your own parents that did nothing to you? And that's why I said all of that trauma that he's gone through is not enough for him to get to that point. He's been fiending to do this. You have not suffered enough.
Yuji, you're a strong kid, so try to help others.
I could compare his trauma to a lot of the characters in the show. Let's start with the main character, shall we? Both his parents are dead. His grandfather, who was his only guardian, died. He became a vessel for the King of Curses. He faces execution and has to go to Jujutsu High. You see how he has to go to Jujutsu High?
He accidentally kills his brothers, two of his brothers, that he didn't know were his brothers. He didn't know why he was feeling so guilty about it, because he killed his own family members, not knowing they were his. Then, after that, his own brother tries to kill him. He almost dies. And he gets fed a whole bunch of Sukuna's fingers, and because of that, and also his weakened state, because his brother literally basically killed him, he can't revive himself quick enough to take over his body, and so Sukuna kills more people, Geto's two children, wreaks havoc all over Shibuya. By the time he gains consciousness, Sukuna already done killed a whole bunch of people, took away Inumaki's arm. Then, his mentor, aside from Gojo, that he had a close relationship with, Nanami, died. Also, actually, let me fast forward. I actually forgot another traumatic point that started before he killed his own brothers. He makes a friend with a loner who's been bullied and then manipulated by Mahito, and then he dies. And mind you, Mahito was the first person that Yuji said he would kill. Add that on to the list. Another one of his friends, Nobara, presumed dead, dies. Gone for the majority of the series. His best friend Toto, who helps him try to fight against Mahito, loses both of his hands and is no longer able to fight. Then, on top of that, the one person that he swore he was going to kill, even if that means they were crawling to the ends of the earth, he was going to find him and kill him, didn't even get the satisfaction, didn't even get the opportunity to finally kill him because Brainiac comes in and absorbs him and turns him into Uzumaki. Then, he gets attacked by Urume. Also, his other mentor is sealed in a box.
And that's just season 2, Buki. It only gets worse from here. You know how it gets worse from here. We've all seen the manga chapter. I say he has a reason enough to be morally ambiguous than the man who, I don't feel comfortable. I don't want to do this job anymore. I hate it. Even though I'm not forced to do it, I don't want to do it anymore. You know, I'm just going to annihilate everybody that's not like me and be prejudiced and be racist. Let's add Toji to the list. Let's add Maki to the list. Gojo, Nanami, and you see how the two of them, despite their traumatic events, didn't turn on the rest of society who's unknowingly making these curses. No, instead, they had resentment towards the higher-ups who have been sending children on suicide missions knowingly, expecting these kids to die. After Haibara's gruesome death, he still finds a way to make it about the non-sorcerers and not about the higher-ups who sent him on that mission. Geto asks, how many times do I watch my comrades die? And that is a valid question. But saying that, how could you not think about the people who are sending those kids on those missions? Your comrades are dying because they were sent there with higher-ups knowing or not even caring whether or not they were capable of dealing with the curses. If he hadn't lived by that philosophy that, mind you, no one told him to live by, he probably would have had a solution closer to Yuki's instead. Haibara had more of an impact on Nanami's life, which is why he was so protective over the children and made it clear, you are a child, I am the adult, I'm gonna risk my life to save you. Gojo, I'm gonna risk my life to save these kids because I want them to have a better life and a better outcome than I did. But Geto didn't use that experience to do that. He jumped to mass and forced evolution. When he came out that box, he went straight to them higher-ups to kill him. Be mad at the higher-ups that are purposefully, knowingly, intentionally trying to kill children, that think children are disposable. Gojo's students actually were able to carry out his will, which is what Geto failed to do. 10 years go by, and you do nothing. And I'm tired of people making excuses for the fact that you did nothing for 10 years. Y'all know that's a decade, right? Your plan was forced evolution and annihilation. You needed to get to work. You went back to that star religious group, wiped blood off your face, and I would admit that was kind of badass. And then you said, I'm your god now. You do what I say. And that was it. Basically a psychic medium that people can pay you and go to solve their very easy problems. And then you get to spray yourself with disinfectant for touching them. You build your little posse. You didn't plan nothing. You didn't organize nothing. You didn't do nothing. And the thing is, you said you don't like swallowing curses. You said they tasted like a dirty rag covered in vomit. You didn't like swallowing it. Yet somehow, 10 years later, they were still getting swallowed up. You've been deep-throating these curses willingly, just like you've been doing before. So, bro, the potential you actually had to be a villain if you was putting that work. And people want to disrespect Magneto and Eren Yeager by comparing you to them. Mind you, they was getting busy in months. They had their stuff organized. They had Titans walking around the city, killing people. He put in that work.
Waited for 3.5 years. White man did it in 1 week. I waited for 3.5 years. White man did it in 1 week.
And you out here playing games, playing God. Because of what? That ego. Because of what? Superiority complex. Because of what? The prejudice. And people were making excuses. You're making excuses for a decade of no work? Well, he did. He tried to get Utah. That's the only thing you did in 10 years? Try to get Utah? Stop making excuses. I know people say Geto's work is gathering up as many curses as possible to build his arsenal, his little army, but that is not enough work in 10 years, especially after being compared to Magneto and Eren Yeager. Eren was 19. He planned most of it by himself. The excuses that y'all say, well, he was waiting for Rika, the Queen of Curses, there is no proof that that man knew that Rika was just gonna show up. And you're waiting 10 years for that? I think he most likely heard from that article of her massacring school children at Utah school like everyone else. It's not an excuse. I made a post a while ago, like maybe over a year ago, on TikTok. And I do my usual comedic, anime opinions, whatever, that shouldn't be taken that seriously. But like I said, the cult is serious. They're very protective over this man. I said Geto is a horrible father. Playfully, also kind of irritated the fact that his daughters died. And honestly, it took me aback the amount of negative reactions I gotten from it. I get that they're teenagers, but we need to admit, even in your teens, there's a certain level of common sense. I get that they wanted justice for their father, that they wanted a proper burial. I would think you would have more common sense to not think you can boss around the King of Curses. The bribe that you give is 1 measly finger after just feeding him 10. That's dumb. and I hated the fact that they died. I feel like it was unnecessary. It's not like they were that important anyways. You could have written them off like you do with the other female characters. They could have just lived life. But then we also see that even Geto's like perception of the people around him, the people that he claimed are superior alongside with him, his family weren't even strong. They didn't have no stronghold. That's why I said there was no foundation. He's not a dad in the sense like, oh, he's abusive or he's like negligent. He spoiled them, which is not something that is bad, but he didn't have them carry out his will. And maybe you could say, well, he didn't want them to do that. Okay, did you make sure an emergency plan just in case you die? He did ask if his family was all right to Gojo after Yuta basically damn near killed him. And he probably honestly thought that his family had a stronghold enough that they were gonna stay together so he wouldn't have to worry about those two girls because they're adults that could have taken care of them. He probably didn't even think they were gonna break up as quickly as they did. His view of the world is so skewed because you believe those people were a family and they broke up after you died. Anyways, I put the video back up because I'm like, bro, it is what it is, you know, and I went on live after to defend my case, but I don't care anymore, so it is what it is. But if you say racial slurs after this, I mean, that's kind of on you, like you're kind of crazy. I don't hate Geto. I don't think he's a bad character or a badly written character. I think he's a great character, actually. He served his purpose well in the JJK story. But what I had to point out is that the big bad villain and antagonist that a lot of people think he is, it's just, he doesn't exist. His body, taken over by Kenjaku, is the real villain. Geto is not. He's a failed villain. He's someone that had the potential to be one and didn't become one. It was just an excuse for him to be racist. Listen, I understand the criticisms about Megami. I also think that Megami had potential to be a stronger and better sorcerer. He did. And I'd like to believe that later in the years, he does become a strong sorcerer. I don't see why not. He's a child. He still has time. You know who had the time and did not utilize it well? Geto did. You call him potential man as if there ain't a grown-ass man that had the potential to be a better villain. Megami still has potential, but Sugaru, he squandered it. And that's why Gojo didn't have to worry about it, because if he was making moves, Gojo would have to been sent to try and kill him way earlier. But the thing is, he still served his purpose in the story as development for Gojo and an example of how cruel the Jujutsu society is. I may not agree with everything that Gege Akutami chose to do with his story. I think he made a very compelling and honestly great depiction of how harsh the Jujutsu sorcerer society is. Even being in a clan does not save you. In this world, it's harsh. Being a good person, a caring person, is gonna be significantly harder for you because you care about people. We see that happening to the main character, and we see with Toji and Maki having a very similar upbringing and going in different directions. And she's the one that's still living and became a grandparent. We can also assume that the more selfish and greedy you are, the more likely you are to live. Look at Mei Mei. Geto isn't the best villain, and he did have the potential to do more. So he is the real potential man. But he still is an example of how harsh the Jujutsu society is. And in the end, he, like Yuji, is a cog in the machine. Anyways, guys, for those of you who reached the end of my video, thank you so much. I hope you enjoyed yourself. I hope you had a laugh or two at my very over-exaggerated yelling and the fact that I lost my voice at the end of this. And I will see you later.